to thank you. We're being recorded, folks. Let me just get rid of this. We're happy you guys are here today. Congratulations on your EFSP grant. You were awarded funds in phase 39 as well as ARPA-R. So congratulations and kudos to you all. Yay, I see you. Just really quickly, because I am still seeing some folks without their organization's name, and I'm going to say it one more time. If you are having any difficulties changing, renaming yourself, please just put your organization's name in the chat so that one of the ladies can update that for you. It's very important. These orientations were mandatory, and we want to make sure that the organizations that are here we mark you guys as present, okay? Otherwise, you're going to get harassing emails for the duration of the week. Laura will spearhead that effort, telling you guys that you need to show up, all right? So definitely make sure, if you haven't already, to please rename yourself so that we can make sure that we mark your organization as attended. So back to the business at hand, right? So we're here today because your organizations were awarded funds in phases 39 and ARPA-R. So just want to be clear, because I know once that notification went out, and I do want to apologize because I know that the phase 39 award letter, we had a little bit of a glitch. And organizations received that letter about 10 times, right? So you received an email, you were excited, and then it was another email, and you was wondering what was happening, and then afterwards you were over me and seeing this email that said the same thing over and over and over again, right? So I do want to apologize. There was a glitch in sending out the notifications for phase 39. So again, my apologies. You also received an award letter for ARPA-R, and that's where some confusion lied, right? So folks were happy to see their award notices for ARPA-R because for all of you, that was the larger of the two grants. But then you were wondering, where did this come from, right? Where did this come from? Why am I getting this award? Is this right? So we received a lot of calls and emails just to get clarity on that. So I just want to state at front exactly what happened, right? So your organizations applied for our regular EFSP grant, right, for phase 39. While that was happening, we received notification from our national office letting us know that there were some additional dollars was coming through EFSP in the form of ARPA. We did not feel that we needed to do a whole nother application process because we had just accepted applications in response to the phase 39 grant. And since the award, the ARPA dollars were to be spent similar to the regular EFSP grant, we figured rather than having a whole nother application process for this other set of dollars, we would just automatically give consideration to organizations who we were able to award for ARPA dollars as well. So you did not apply for ARPA dollars separately, okay? Please note, you did not apply for it separately. These were dollars that came down from our national office, and it was specific to COVID relief, right? So those of you who were funded last phase, where we had 3 phases running concurrently, we had 37, we had 38, and then we had what was called CARES, right? So CARES came down again as a result of COVID, and ARPA is the same. So just like you didn't apply for CARES dollars, you were automatically awarded had you applied for phase 37 funds. The same thing happened this go around for phase 39, okay? So just wanted to make sure everyone was clear as to why you received 2 awards. I don't think anyone was necessarily complaining about receiving 2 awards, but just was curious as to where these additional dollars were coming from. So as we go through the presentation, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the requirements as it relates specifically to the ARPA dollars. We did include some language in the award letter specific to ARPA on what we are, the program is requiring, and we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation, okay? So everyone understands where ARPA dollars came from, why your organization received it? Yay. So we're going to turn it over to the presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I can't see the chat just yet. So the ladies will be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, we have or anticipate having a relatively large group. If you need to unmute yourself, please do so, but let's be mindful of the fact that there are a number of us. So, after one person has spoken, then you can unmute yourself, or you're just stopping it in the chat, okay? So I'm going to stop showing my face, and I'm going to share the screen so that you all can see the presentation, okay? So I will be back. And for those that I can see Miguelina.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Perfect. So we are here for the Emergency Food and Shelter EFSP Phase 39 and ARPA grant cycle. So both funding will start and end the same. So the phase is November 1st of 2021, and it will end April 30th of 2023. So this simply means that if your organization have any expenses that was incurred as of November 1st and also paid for, you are able to reimburse for those expenses, those eligible expenses, okay? Otherwise, you will be spending down your dollars through April 30th of 2023. Please be advised that if you do not spend all of your dollars by the deadline, then those dollars have to be returned back to the program, folks. Okay, there's not an opportunity, there's not a grace period where they'll say, okay, well, if you spend it down, the next 5 days, you can then claim it against your Phase 39 or ARPA funds. Funds have to be spent within the spending period, and there's no exceptions. All right, so please make sure that you're spending down your award and that all of your invoices are dated within the spending period so that they can be eligible under Phase 39 and our ARPA. So just some meeting logistics, we're asking you to remain muted until you have a question, okay? Or you can just put your question in the chat because the ladies will be monitoring the chat for those. If there are any audio issues and you get, if you have to call in, please, this information was already shared with you through your meeting invite. But just again, you can call in to 646-558-8656 using the meeting ID number 281-439-9440 and passcode 697642. Okay, and this workshop will be approximately 2 hours long, give or take. We do ask for you to bear with us if we end up going over a little bit in time. We had that situation happen in our previous workshops, but we didn't hold you guys too long. So definitely bear with us if we run over a little bit in time. So the agenda for today, we're going over the EFSP program overview as well as the roles and responsibilities. We will be discussing the Phase 39 versus ARPA funding. We will go in detail for each category, the eligible and ineligible expenses. We're gonna have a fun pop quiz, okay? And then we're gonna open it up for any questions at the end, okay? So let's start with the program staff. You've already met the team. That includes myself, Miguelina, and Laura. You'll see our contact information there. While United Way staff, we're still working remotely. We still are located at 205 East 42nd Street in New York. Then we have our regional staff member. Her name is Tony Ruffin, and you'll see her information there. She's our senior regional manager, and she can be reached at 703-706-9660. Tony is operating out of our national office, also known as United Way Worldwide in Virginia. Okay, and then the EFSP website that everyone should definitely be familiar with and get acclimated to is www.efsp.unitedway.org. Okay, the EFSP website is where you will be finding all of your information as it relates to your grant. It's where you'll be submitting all of your documentation. It is where you're going to be supplying all of your reports for EFSP, okay? So just really quickly about the program structure, EFSP, again, is a national program. governed by our national board, and they are responsible for the overall policy development and implementation of the program, okay? The board is comprised of United Way Worldwide, Council of Jewish Federations, the Salvation Army, National Council Churches of Christ in the USA, Catholic Charities, American Red Cross, as well as FEMA, okay? The local board that mirrors the composition of the national board to the extent possible. We are responsible for the advertisement of funds, recommendations of organizations and the amount that's received. We monitor and local implementation, provide appeals, and must account for all of the funds that we receive to the jurisdiction. Okay, and finally, the local recipient organizations. Okay, that would be you guys, the grantees. Just another acronym to throw in your alphabet soup, LROs. That is how we identify our grantees, and we identify you with an LRO number, which is a 9-digit number starting with 631400, preceded by 3 digits. Okay, so when you are calling us and you're asking us for information as it relates to your EFSP grant, we do not identify your organization using your 5-digit EFRO ID number, okay? And I know that most folks are more familiar with that number, given the fact that just about every other funder utilizes your EFRO ID number. With EFSP, we utilize the LRO number. So get familiar with that number for your organization when you're calling us and you have any specific information as it relates to your program. So you are responsible for the delivery of food and shelter services and must account for all of the funds that you receive, okay? So just very quickly, the history about EFSP, it was introduced back in 1983 through a job stimulus bill funded at $50 million to EFSP and $50 million to state governments. It was reauthorized in 1987 under the Stewart-McKinney Homeless Assistance Act. Operating principles. The funds must supplement and expand on your current resources, okay? It is not seed money for new agencies or programs, all right? So we all know that to be eligible to apply for funds, you have to be in operations for a minimum of 6 months, all right? So it's not seed money to start up any new programs. And if you have a new program, it has to be in operations at the time you submit your application, a minimum of 6 months. There's limited focus, emergency, not structural, not poverty program, and not for natural declared disasters. Local decision-making is determined by the local board, who determines the community needs and priorities, as well as make funding decisions. There is sensitivity to groups with special needs, such as the veterans, mentally ill, disabled, elderly families with children, homeless, et cetera, et cetera. And then there is minimal but accountable reporting, okay? We do require that grantees submit 2 reports. One is an interim report and one is a final report. So again, the local board, we're responsible for advertising, allocation decisions, trainings and workshops like the ones we're having today. Site visits, we have not done that in a while, and it's primarily due to, limited staff. We just don't have the capacity to go out and do site visits often. So we do rely very heavily and work very closely with our colleagues in the HIPNAP unit, as well as other funders such as the Food Bank for New York City, City Harvest, and HRA through EFAP, who does conduct regular site monitoring of emergency food providers. So while we're not out and we're doing these types of visits, we are privy to the information once you have a site visit, okay? And if it's major issues and it can result in your organization losing dollars as a result, okay? So let's make sure that when you have your site visits, everything is on the up and up, and if it's not, that you do everything that you need to do to correct it, because it can ultimately affect all of your funding streams, including EFSP. So we are the first reviewers of all documentation. We will reallocate funds when necessary. I just want to say that we only come about having any dollars to reallocate is if we're having to take funds from one organization and then we will give it to another, okay? When we receive the allocation, we award down to the last penny, so we don't have any dollars that we can later provide additional funding to any organization. But again, the only way we come about having any additional dollars is if we need to reallocate. All right. And reallocation primarily stems from any compliance issues that goes unresolved. And then we have from time to time organizations kind of explicitly saying to us, hey, thank you for the award, but unfortunately we cannot spend down on the award or the entire award for X, Y, or Z reason. Okay, and at that point, then we will do reallocations. And when we're doing reallocations, we do, the sooner we're able to do it, the better, because if we are needing to reallocate funds, for instance, from an organization that's located in the Bronx, a food pantry that's located in the Bronx, we then try and reallocate those dollars back to a food pantry located in the Bronx. Okay, that's when we can do it as early as possible. But then we have times where we need to do some quick reallocations to organizations, probably days before the spending period ends. And at that point, we're looking really to see what organization have received all of their dollars. Sometimes we get emails from organizations saying, hey, if you come about having any additional funding, we can accept, we can spend it down, let us know. And at that point, we will reach out to organizations that way. So it's not necessarily we're keeping it into, in the same area or program type. Is really, we just need to get these dollars reallocated so that the national office do not absorb any dollars that's left on the table. All right. And then we create written appeals for agencies if necessary. And these appeals, also known as various requests, we do on behalf of organizations, primarily, again, those that are having compliance resolution issues. We've exhausted all possibilities, and then we then go to our national board and ask for a one-time waiver. Now, we've had some success, and then we had some that were not successful. Now, if you are successful, the national office will allow for a one-time waiver. And then if you're not, they're going to say that you're not. And unfortunately, in order for us to continue to fund your organization, your agency must return the funds that was out of compliance, okay, in order for you to be eligible to receive funding in the future. All right. So the most important thing is pay close attention to today's orientation so that you're not in a situation where you end up having any compliance issues. Okay. That's the best way to go. Our national board, the responsibilities. So first and foremost, the members are established by Congress. United Way, it should say worldwide, serves as the secretariat. So United Way of New York City, while we do make the recommendations for awards, we do monitor the funds, we do not pay you. Okay, we do not pay you. Payments come from United Way worldwide. All right, so I know the burning question always comes up is, when are we going to get our payments? Do you know? We never know. Unfortunately, we don't know when payments are going to be issued to organizations. What we do know and can tell you is if there's anything that's prohibiting your organization from receiving your payment. So that will stem around, did you submit all of your required documents? Do you have any outstanding compliance issue? Things of that nature. So we can make sure that you're on the up and up, and can accept the dollars. But in terms of when the dollars are actually released, that is depending on the timely submission of your documentation and when the national office actually releases the payment. They determine the allocation to each jurisdiction based on an employment formula. Okay, so the national board is the ones that notifies us and let us know exactly how much dollars each jurisdiction has to spend down. And while we're always happy to see large dollars, right? So I know that especially with ARPA, we see these large awards amounts, but unfortunately, that means that employment here in New York City is not doing well. So there are far more folks that are unemployed than employed. And this is just employed. We're not talking about wages. We're not talking about livable wages. We're just talking about an employment number. So the fact that we received an increase in both allocation, well, we received the ARPA funding in the amount that we received, and then we received an increase for our regular phase 39 grant phase is a telling sign, right? It's a telling sign that there are a lot more folks that are still in need, that are jobless. And while again, it's wonderful to receive the allocation, when we see that number starts to drop, it's actually a better indication that, you know, folks are doing better. They reallocate unclaimed and unused funds. So any dollars that is not spent down or returned back to the program, those dollars are claimed by our national office, and then they will do a reallocation, right? So I've been working with this program now for 14 years, and we've benefited from a reallocation one time, okay? However, there's always dollars, some dollars left on the table at the end of the spending period where either folks didn't receive their payments or they ended up returning dollars. So they received their payments, they didn't spend down all of their dollars in the time frame allotted. Therefore, they returned the dollars back to the program. Okay, so again, because it's such a gamble as to whether or not we're going to receive any dollars through a reallocation process, the best thing to do is make sure that we spend down on the award so there's no dollars left on the table. And then, of course, they're the ones that will grant any of our requests for waivers. And then they're responsible for the EFSP website, any technical issues, things of that nature. It is handled by United Way Worldwide. Now, finally, the local recipient organizations, the LROs, also known as our grantees. You guys must be familiar with the guidelines, okay? The EFSP manual is your friend, folks. Please make sure you download it, you peruse it, you take a look at it. We're going to talk about some things as it relates to expenses. The manual has a lot more information that we just simply can't cover in a 2-hour training. So please make sure that you take a look at the manual, see what's allowed under your program type, because there are different things that would be allowed based on the type of program that you operate. Get familiar with the guidelines, all right? All organizations must enroll for electronic funds transfer, also known as EFT. Your agencies will receive your dollars in 2 equal parts, so 2 payments, okay? And all payments will be made through an electronic funds transfer, which is a change because up until now, the national office used to mail the first payment to all newly funded grantees. So if you were a newly funded grantee, you would have received your first payment via check. And then you had to submit your EFT form so that you can get all subsequent payments. That has now changed. Okay, that has now changed. So now, unless you are enrolled with EFT, you will not receive your payment. All right, so make sure that if you are a new grantee that you submit your EFT form. If you are a returning grantee and you've had change in your banking, right? Your account is no longer the one that we have on file. You too need to download your EFT form and submit that so we can update that for you. We definitely don't want any funds being transferred into any accounts that is no longer active. Everyone must have or establish a DUNS number. If you are a brand new organization, in your award letter, we spoke to this, you need to download the DUNS form, you need to complete it, and then you need to email it to the team, okay? At that point, we'll be able to send it to the national office who will be able to update your record. We don't have the ability to add DUNS number, so we then submit that to Tony Ruffin, who quickly updates your record, and then you will be able to supply your certification form. All right, until we have a DUNS number on file, you will not be able to supply your certification form. All right, this goes true if you are a returning organization and we do not have a DUNS number on file for you. DUNS number requirement only came about, I want to say, probably within the last 7, maybe 8 years. So if you haven't been funded in that amount of time, you would have returned and don't have a DUNS number on file. So again, if you don't have a DUNS number on file, you need to download the DUNS form, complete it, and send it to us so that we can get that on file for you. You will not discriminate. You will use funds to extend your current resources. You may not act as a vendor for another LRO, and you must submit your required reports. So after you receive your first payment, okay, what triggers your first payment is submitting your required forms, which would be the LRO certification form. And then if you were refunded at $100,000 or more, that will also include your lobbying form. Okay, if you need a DUNS, you need to update your DUNS record, then that would also include your DUNS form. So providing you have all the requirements met, you will receive your first payment, right? Your first payment will then trigger your interim report. Right now, there's a tab on the website that says interim report that has nothing there. Your interim report will only become active after you've received your first payment, okay? And what I am encouraging everyone to do, as soon as you receive your first payment, please submit your interim report. Okay, please submit your interim report. The interim report itself is going to have a deadline date, which is wonderful. I'm saying submit it as soon as you receive your payment. All right. The reason being is that you don't need to be spent in order to submit your interim report. Okay, unlike your final report where you have to be fully spent, your interim report, you do not need to be fully spent. And what we tend to see from time to time is that folks will get their dollars and then they would wait and then they will forget, right? Oh, I need to submit my interim report. And then you submit your interim report on the 30th, and then it's a gamble, April 30th, 2023, and then it's a gamble as to whether or not you're actually going to receive the payment. Right? So please, as soon as you get your first payment, we are encouraging every organization to immediately submit your interim report. If you call one of us and say, when is the deadline for submission? We're going to say now. Okay, the minute you get your payment, submit that interim report. There's no need to delay. If you are a brand new organization funded for the very first time in phase 39 and ARPA-R, once you submit your interim report, you will get your second payment immediately. Okay, immediately don't mean tomorrow. Immediately means, when they do their next payment run. And the reason being is because you do not have any pending compliance, right? If you are a returning grantee, all right, so you were funded in our previous phase 37, CARES, or 38, the national office have to review all of the final reports that were submitted. And once they've done that, they're going to release any compliance findings. Okay, if your organization do not have any compliance findings and you have submitted your interim report, they're going to release your second payment to you. If you have compliance issues, your second payment, I apologize, is going to remain on hold until your compliance issues have been resolved. All right, so definitely make sure that once those notifications are sent, if you have a compliance issue, do not wait to address them. Okay, immediately start reaching out to us if you have questions. If you need to substitute documentation, start looking for those things and submit for your compliance resolution immediately. Compliance can take a couple weeks for resolution. Okay. So please, the sooner you're able to submit documentation in response to any compliance issues, the sooner you'll be able to get your second payment. And then the final report will become available to organizations after the spending period ends. Okay, right now we're scheduled to end April 30th of 2023. All right. Now, after the spending period ends, the national office has up to 90 days to release the final report. It is not automatically activated as of May 1st, right? So the national office have to prepare the final reports, and then they will release the final reports for submission. All right. So April 30th is when all your monies need to be paid. It is not when you need to supply your final report. All right, it's not when you need to supply your final report. Once the national office releases the final report, the person that's on the EFSP website, the email that's on the website, is going to get a system generated email from the national office saying the final reports are available. And we will make sure that we also send an email to everyone that we have on our list, because we know that the website only allows for one email. For our records, we have at least two of you, who is the one that would be the ED and the other is the program contact person that was on the application. And then if there were any other folks that you guys wanted to add to receive communications related to your grant, we will make sure that those folks also receive the email. So while the website only allows for one contact, we, the local board staff, can send information to more than that. Okay, so if there are folks on your team that should be receiving information related to your grant and we currently don't have their contact information, please send them on. Okay, we rather send it to 50 people in your organization and your organization is covered than sending it to one person who, you know, might be on leave and will not be able to respond and immediately turn things around. All right. So the final reports, they will become available when the national office releases them. Then you cannot have any outstanding compliance exceptions. And if you do, you will work with your local board to clear them. Any questions? Ooh, that was a mouthful. All righty. So phase 39 versus ARPA-R funding. So for phase 39, it is our regular EFSP grant phase. We're now on the 39th phase of funding. Okay, so funding again to supplement and expand on your existing resources for emergency food and shelter programs. The budget, the total national budget for phase 39 was $130 million, of which New York City was awarded a little over $6 million. Okay, which again is more than what we've received in since the beginning of this program. We've hit up to $5 million. The program received a cut and we've been hovering over about $3.54 million. So this $6 million is definitely an increase since the start of EFSP. All right. And then the ARPA funds, also known as the American Rescue Plan Act. These dollars, again, came about to respond to the continuing COVID-19 impact on communities. So funded organizations must document if the client and or the household has been impacted by COVID-19. Okay, so for your American Recovery Plan Act, also known as ARPA, are representing regular, okay, because you're able to spend down your grant on the same eligible items for your program type as for phase 39. Not to be confused with another ARPA, right? So organizations that were funded last phase might have received information or on the website saw information related to ARPA funds. And those funds were very specific to organizations that were providing services to immigrant migrants at the southern border. All right, that is not what ARPA-R is. Okay, that was another question that I received a lot of emails around. Larissa, we don't qualify for this because we're not servicing these clients, or we don't have any way of documenting because you had to be able to document it. That is not what the ARPA-R dollars are. Okay, these are very specific to COVID relief. And the expenses are the same as our regular phase 39 expenses. The only thing is that organizations will need to document whether or not the household has been impacted by COVID-19. So just some examples of what that would look like. And I know that, you know, these are just examples. Some organizations are more sophisticated and are now doing away with any paper formats. But nonetheless, a sample would look like this, a food pantry intake form, right? So essentially it's your sign-in sheet right? We got all fancy intake. It's your sign-in sheet. So all you would need to do, and if you have it electronically, you could just add another column. If you don't, you just add the question: have you or your family been affected by COVID-19? Okay, and you can simply put a Y for yes, or put the word yes, or N for no, or put the word no. Okay, and same goes true for soup kitchen. We don't capture, or in the past, a lot of the soup kitchen intake form or sign-in sheets, we weren't requiring a lot of information. As folks were coming in, you were identifying whether or not they were an adult, the elderly, or a child. You will circle that. You can, again, add a label to your sign-in sheet, right? Add a label to your sign-in sheet with the question: has your client been affected by COVID-19? Yes or no? Okay, so add a label somewhere on it. And then as you are checking folks in, ask the question: hey, we just need to record, have you or your family been impacted by COVID-19? Yes or no? Now, if the client says no, it does not mean you cannot service them, provide the service to that client, okay? We just need to be able to track it. Okay, so if the response is no, it doesn't mean, okay, we can't help you today, come back tomorrow, right? When we're providing food that's not ARPA related. I kid, but you can definitely still provide the service to the client. You just need to record that. Same goes true if the client refuses to respond, right? Maybe they don't want to answer your question, right? Yeah, what do you need this for? No, that's okay. That's also fine. If they refuse to respond, that is also okay. By default, just put no, right? By default, I would just put no. So this, again, were just some examples. I know that intake forms look very different depending on your organization. So all we're asking you to do is to please update your intake form to the best of your ability, and including language around whether or not the client or the household has been impacted by COVID. All right. Many of times the answer is probably going to be yes, right? But if it's no, we're recording it. And that's the only requirement, or the difference, I should say, between phase 39 and then ARPA. Now, what I will say is you don't need to create a whole nother intake form. Use the same intake form, and I would just include that question on it for the duration of the spending period. Okay, so you're not going between intake forms. Just use that intake form for the duration of the EFSP ARPA spending period, which ends April 30th. Okay. I don't believe that this is going to be a requirement moving forward. And it is very specific to these dollars. So just use it for the amount of time that you need, at least through April 30th of 2023. I feel like there was a question coming through. And if you had a question, you can definitely unmute yourself.
Larissa, there is a question in the chat.
Oh.
Okay, we'll let Rosemary go first.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. So we use the plentiful system.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use the sign-in sheet, but how would we add that information onto the plentiful?
Okay, so very good question, Rosemary, and we're actually we're going to be talking about the best way in which, and when I say we, we'll be connecting with our Plentiful team to determine the best way to do that. In the meantime, there's a note section in Plentiful where you can capture this information. We're definitely going to see if if there's a better way. We're talking to folks on the team this week to see what would be the best way for this information to be captured for those of you that are Plentiful users. We don't have an answer just yet, so the quick fix is just to add this in the notes section, capture this in the notes section for the clients as you're checking them in. And then once we've determined the best way to do that, and it shouldn't be long because the conversations are happening now. we will definitely be able to send notifications to all of the Plentiful users on exactly how that information can be captured if you are receiving EFSP. Okay, Rosemary?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No, thank you for your question. And while we're on the topic of, wait, hold on.
The question, yeah,
There was another question, right?
one more question, Marissa.
All right.
From Nicole, she wants to know, does the COVID impact question mean broadly, as in loss of income hours due to
Yes.
COVID, or does it only mean infected with COVID?
Nope, it's broadly. It's broadly affected in whether it was health-wise, economic-wise, like broadly. Any other questions that was in the chat before?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, not a problem. All right, so we're going to take a quick poll while we're on the topic of Plentiful, just so that we can have some data as we're talking to the team. So Miguelina is going to make available a poll. And we're asking everyone to please participate, whether you are a pantry or not. Indicate whether or not you operate a pantry. And then if yes, of course, we're asking you to indicate whether or not you are currently using Plentiful. Okay, so we're just gonna give a couple minutes for that. And again, we're asking all of you to please participate. I can see we're at 53% participation. If you are having any difficulties with the poll, please let us know. But I see you guys, the information is coming through. Okay. All right. I think we're good here. Is there anyone else who need 2 more seconds? Okay, that was your 2 seconds. All right, so that's it. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. We'll make sure that, you know, we get back to our Plentiful. We have some data. Magdalena, should I hit stop sharing? Or is this you? Okay.
I just did.
Okay, good. So thank you guys so much for participating in the poll. Moving right along. So now let's talk about the required forms and reports for EFSP, right? So the local recipient organization LRO certification form is required by all funded grantees, all right? So everyone that's funded need to submit an LRO certification form, and a certification form is required for both funding. So for phase 39 as well as for ARPA, okay? So you need to make sure that you submit both. Again, if you are a newly funded organization or returning agency without a DUNS number on file, you will also need to submit your DUNS form. Okay, now if you require a DUNS, if your DUNS number is not on file, you need to do that first, because you will not be able to submit your certification form without having your DUNS number on file. All right. If your organization was funded at $100,000 or more, you are also required to submit a lobbying certification form. Okay, so in addition to the LRO certification form, you also have to supply a lobbying certification form if you were funded at $100,000 or more. EFT form is required for everyone. If you're a newly funded organization, you need to supply that. If you are a returning organization and had a change in banking, we require you to submit a new EFT form. Please, if you're returning, take a look on your agency's record on the website and make sure that the account that is there is still the same one that you guys are using, all right? And if it has changed, then again, you should definitely submit an EFT form. I will go a step further in letting us know if there's a change so that we can also alert Tony to put a hold on any payments so that it does not go into the account that is no longer valid, right? Well, it actually won't go in, but it'll go into like this universe of, you know, lost dollars, and then before it's returned back to the program, and then they can reissue. All right, so we don't want any delays, unnecessary delays with that process. Again, an interim report must be filed after the organization receives their first payment. And then a final report must also be filed after the spending period ends and the national office releases the report. Okay, what I will say regarding the final reports, because this question comes up often around final reports time. Why do I need to submit a final report for the full amount of my award when I already submitted an interim report? The reason being is the one that I emphasized earlier, the interim report, you do not need to be spent. Right? You do not need to be spent. All of your dollars, if I receive $3,000, I put everything under unexpended and then I submit. The interim report is really just saying I'm ready for the rest of my money. Okay, your final report, you need to be fully spent, and that's where you need to account for every dollar that you received. So that's where you're reporting for the full amount of your award, not just the second half. Okay.
Larissa, we have,
Yes.
so Rosemary has a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
So my question is, you just mentioned the DUNS, and we keep getting this, that the DUNS number are going to be replaced. So I don't know if you have any question regarding that, because we're not really sure. We haven't heard anything from you guys pertaining to it. So,
and I haven't heard anything either. So
I keep getting email that it's going to be replaced. USFCR.
Right. So I've heard something around that right now. Rosemary, as it is for EFSP, the DUNS number is what they're still requiring. So not quite sure what's going to happen when, when it officially, if it officially gets replaced, they might just ask for that number. But right now, as it stands, the DUNS number is required for EFSP.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Was there another question, Megalina? Or that was it?
There is another question, but it's in regards to the manual. I think you're going to be speaking about it in the next couple of slides.
The manual itself, probably not, probably some of the contents within it, but okay. And if we don't, then please, whoever had that question, we can definitely talk about it. All right, so now we're at the EFSP website, right? Every funded organization have a login for the website. Okay, so if you are a returning organization, you are logging in with your 9-digit LRO number. Okay, and then you're putting in your password, and then you'll be able to access the EFSP website. However, if you are returning and you do not remember your user login because you have just way too many of them, right? We have you login into an application, we have you login into this, we have you login into that. So what you can do is do a password retrieval. Okay, forgot your user ID and password. Now this function will only work for the email, well, not only work, this function will only send the password to the email address that we have on file, okay, on the website. So if you do not know the email address that's on file, then please reach out to one of us so that we can tell you who's the staffer whose email is on file. And if that needs to be changed, we can change it on our end for you. And then you'll be able to go in and do the password retrieval with the email update. Okay, so you're going to do a password retrieval. You'll enter in your email address and you're going to hit submit. And then you're going to get a system generated email containing your credentials for the EFSP website. All right. Now, if you are a brand new organization funded for the very first time, in your award letter, it included information on how to log in to the website, right? So for brand new organizations, we provided you with your LRO number, right? Your LRO number is the ID number for the website. And for your very first time accessing the website, you're going to use that very same number as your password. All right, so your 9-digit LRO number will be your user ID as well as your password for newly funded organizations. Once you've logged in, you will then be prompted to change the password. Please make sure you change it. Okay, you'll be prompted to change the password. Please make sure you change it and you safeguard your password to the website. Now, once everyone has logged in, you're going to see the home page, and everyone's home page may look a little different, okay? Because at the top, it tells you what open holes you currently have, right? So until we submit all the forms that are required, your open holes is going to show what forms you need to submit. Okay, and then as you start submitting those forms, you'll see them start disappearing. So for right now, we owe a Phase 39 LRO certification form. We also owe the lobbying form for 39, as well as ARPA and the certification form. All right. Now, if you are a returning organization and you currently have any open compliance issues, you're going to see the compliance issue listed as one of your open holes. All right. So please, as soon as you submit your required forms, let's work on the compliance issue. All right. If you do not know how to pull your compliance report, please reach out to us. We'll provide you with instructions on how to do so. So that you know exactly what issues are still hovering over your organization and for what phase. All right, do not ignore anything that has information related to compliance, okay? Because if you currently have an open compliance, even after submitting all of your required forms, you're not going to get paid, okay? Remember, compliance holds payments, okay? Until compliance is resolved, you will not get paid. So it's very important to make sure that we're addressing and submitting the required documents in response to your compliance. All right. So to submit your forms, you're going to the LRO plan. The instructions again was in your award notice that was sent by United Way of New York City, not the system generated email that was issued by the national office, 2 different letters. If you need to supply that DUNS form, you'll see along the side panel, the DUNS form is there for you to download, complete, and submit to us. DUNS numbers, we cannot accept your DUNS number without it being on the form. All right, so don't just send me an email saying, hey, Larissa, this is the DUNS number for United Way of New York City. We need it on the DUNS form, all right? And then, of course, if you need that EFT form, you'll download it from the website. It's already going to pre-populate your agency's name and LRO number, and then you will just need to complete and then send in the required documents so that we can have that information added to your record.
So Larissa, I think we can ask, I can ask you 2 questions on the EFSP manual. So the first one is, where can you find that EFSP manual?
Okay, so I'm just going to bring my cursor. Here it is. It says EFSP manual. That's where you will be able to access the manual.
And then the second question is, will a new manual be available to address changes tied to COVID? The current posted manual is for Phase 35.
Yep, and that they're working on updating the manual as we speak. So yes. Any other questions before I move forward?
That's all for now.
Okay. So yes, there's a lot of information that you'll find along this line. Manage personal info. Manage personal info. If the contact person that's on attached to your EFSP account on the EFSP website, if you need to change that, you can. Okay, you don't need to submit a request to the team in order to do that, unless you do not have access. That's a different story. But once you have access, if you want to make any changes to your account's information, you have the ability to do that. Anything that is shaded in like gray, you won't be able to change, but anything that's not shaded, you can change. So who the person is, the email, the address, the telephone number, et cetera, et cetera. Once you log in, you have the ability to do that from the manage personal info. And if you want to change your password, same thing, right? You're just going to go to the change password, and then you'll follow the prompts to do so. So moving right along to the submission of the certification form. Once you select the LRO plan, as a reminder, you're going to be automatically defaulted to phase 39. Okay, when you need to submit your phase ARPA, you're going to select the drop-down menu, and then you're going to select the ARPA-R, okay? Not this one, the one right above 39, not the one below. Okay, the one below is the one that I was talking about before. No one received funding in ARPA-R, in ARPA, just in the ARPA-R. Okay, so that's where you're going to go to submit your certification form for ARPA-R. So you're going to see the system is going to tell you, okay, what forms you need to submit. So if you did not receive funds more than $100,000, this form here is not going to be required and will not show up for you. Okay, so they're only going to show the forms that is required by your agency. So you don't need to email us to say, hey, I didn't see a lobbying certificate from my organization. Do I need to submit it? The system will let you know exactly what forms you need to submit. And then once you submit it, the icon is going to change to, I believe, like this yellow icon to show submission, right? You're going to select the icon. Each one you do need to do separately. Okay, you do need to do separately. So you will go in, you're going to hit the icon for the LRO certification form. And then you're going to receive an email. Well, I'm sorry, you'll first be prompted by the system that an email is being sent to the email address on file, right? So that email address is going to receive the certification form and will be able to ultimately sign the form on behalf of the organization, right? So this is what an example of what the email looks like. It's an email that comes from EFSP via DocuSign, and then you'll select to review, and that's to open, and then you'll follow the prompts to e-sign the form. And once you've e-signed the form, you're going to get another email containing the signed LRO certification form. Okay, there's no need for you to forward us this form. The minute that is submitted, we receive it. Okay, technology is amazing. So the minute that you sign it, we receive a copy, and then your record on the EFSP website will reflect that that form was submitted. If you're required to also submit the lobbying form, you will go back to the plan and you're going to follow the same instructions. You're going to select for each phase, you're going to select the form, and then you're going to select the icon. You'll get that DocuSign email, and then you will be able to submit the lobbying form as well. Okay. Any questions regarding the submission of these documents, where you can find documents, anything that we went over? Okay. Alrighty. So let's get into the eligibility requirements. Now we're going to go through each category. Some may apply to your organization, some may not. But because EFSP, we fund in several different categories, we want to make sure that all organizations know exactly what's eligible under their program type. And again, this is the short list. Okay, this is a short list of items. You can definitely peruse the EFSP manual. There's also guides. You know, let me go back one and see if I could find quick reference guide. I know that Miguelina, she's been doing an amazing job at the end of the workshop, sending a copy of the presentation and also including the resource guides. But please know, everything that we're sending, it's available to you as well. Okay, so here you will find the quick reference guides. Now, these reference guides, you will see, I didn't include it as part of the presentation, but they're there, and there's one for every category type, right? And it goes into specifics as it relates to that in particular category. So you can always find it on the EFSP website. I know Miguelina, she's going to share that with you guys as well, but I definitely wanted to point it out that this is information, again, that you can find on the EFSP website. Okay. So what we're discussing today is a short list. For a more extensive list, please either take a look at the manual and or the guides. So for served meals programs, these are programs that are providing hot meals or prepared meals. I was corrected when someone said, well, we do sandwiches, it's not hot. So does this apply to me? Yes. If you're providing an already prepared meal, then your funding was awarded to you in the category of served meals. Okay, the category is not named like soup kitchen, for instance, because it's not just for soup kitchen organizations to receive dollars in this in particular category. If you are a shelter, you have the ability to request for funds in the category of food, served meals, or for your lodging. Okay, so that's why this section is not called eligible soup kitchen food expenses. It's served meals because it applies to two different program types. So if you are a served meals program, there are two ways in which you'll be able to report your expenses for this category. So option one is through direct costs, right? You'll just make your purchases. You can make your purchase from the food bank. You can purchase from any local store or vendor, right? So that's the beauty about EFSP, is that you have flexibility in where you can utilize your dollars, okay? Now, I know some of you are already working with the Food Bank for New York City, and you prefer to purchase from their wholesale list, and that is fine. If you are receiving HIPNAP from United Way of New York City and you're using Driscoll Food as your vendor and you would like to spend down your EFSP award with them as well, that is completely your option, but you do have other options, right? So you can pretty much spend down your dollars with any food vendor of choice. So option two, you can definitely still make your purchases from any vendor of choice, right? You can make your purchases from any vendor of choice, but how you document that will look different using option two. You can use what's called a per meal allowance, all right? A per meal allowance. So when you are asked at the end of the spending period to supply your spreadsheets and your documentation with your final reports, you could either supply your spreadsheets for all of your direct costs, or you can do a per meal allowance log, right? The per meal allowance log is a log where you'll indicate the daily count, how many people you served, the date, how many people that was served, using now a $3 per meal allowance rate. Okay, so this is a change. This is a change to EFSP effective now, right? So as of last phase 39, CARES in 37, the per meal allowance rate was $2. It is now $3, and that is what it is moving forward. Okay, so those of you who are served meals programs and you were utilizing option two, the per meal allowance rate, that rate has now increased and it's now $3. Okay. So what would be ineligible items? All right, so that will be any pet foods and products, excessive snacks and sweets, any invoices dated outside of the spending period. Okay, remember the spending period for phase 39 in ARPA-R is November 1st of 2021, and it will go through April 30th of 2023. Anything outside of that is considered ineligible. Any funds on account with vendor, this is ineligible. And what this means is, let's say that you're working with Driscoll Foods, right? That's your vendor. You received your EFSP first payment. I received $3,000. I'm going to go to Driscoll Foods. I'm going to give them my $3,000 and I'm going to spend down, similar to what I do with my HIPNAP funds, right? You have funds on account and you spend down in the form of a line of credit. So you give them your $3,000. Today we spend $500. They'll give us the balance, and we'll continue doing that until we have spent down all of the dollars. That is an ineligible way to purchase items, okay? For EFSP, your payment date cannot be before your invoice date. Okay, so that's what the funds on account means. If you have your payment, you paid your vendor, and then you start spending down little by little, that is not an eligible method for EFSP. Your invoice date needs to be the same date of your payment, or you have up until 90 days to make payment on that invoice, okay? Or you have up to 90 days to make payment on that invoice, but your payment cannot be before your invoice date. Cash payment of any kind is ineligible, all right? And then payments made more than 90 days after the invoice is now ineligible, all right? The window for EFSP is 90 days from the invoice date. If your payment is made on the 91st day, the invoice is ineligible. There's no way of getting around it. Okay, so please make sure that you are paying your invoices within that 90-day period. Okay, I would always say a good rule of thumb is to pay it as soon as you get it, as soon as you have the resources to get it. But I know that depending on the agency, if you have compliance issues, for those that are returning, you may have to wait for the national office to release the compliance notifications. There's going to be a delay period, and we understand that. However, it doesn't mean we will allow for organizations to place an invoice and then later say, well, you guys didn't pay me until, after 120 days from that. So how was I supposed to pay for this if I only received my payment, 4 months later? Okay. If you do not have the ability to pay for that invoice right away, and then when your payment is released, reimburse for that expense, then do not place the order. Wait until the funds are in your account and then spend down on your award. Okay. Please. Any questions? So for other food expenses, these again is for organizations that is providing pantry distribution, okay? Or if you are providing vouchers, all right? So again, another reason why this does not say food pantry expenditures, because again, there's two different ways in which this category you can utilize. If you are a pantry, and that would mean prepackaged, or if you have a client choice style, pantry is a pantry, or again, if you're providing vouchers or you're providing gift cards. So food purchase, again, from the food bank. Sometimes there's a shared maintenance fee that's associated with those purchases. With the food bank, you can definitely pay the shared maintenance fee. Again, food purchase from any local store or vendor, similar to the served meals. And then for gift cards or voucher programs, you must have restrictions limiting your purchases. It should state food only. It can state food and diapers only, food, diapers, and feminine hygiene products only. So if you look at the manual, they will show you all the various variations in which it can have, as long as you have one written on your voucher and or your gift cards, it will suffice. If you are a voucher or gift card program, please make sure that you send us a copy before you start spending down. Send us a copy of what that gift card and voucher look like. Let us approve it before you start using it, okay? Because we have to make sure and verify that it has all of the limitations on it. And then depending on how you are utilizing your vouchers, we want to make sure that it has either the required signatures or that your organization is getting itemized receipts for each one of the purchase. So there's different ways in which the voucher program operates. And again, it is in the manual. For those of you who are voucher programs, please take a look at the manual just to make sure. But definitely before you start making purchases of any vouchers or gift cards, you send us a copy, let us approve it before you begin spending down your dollars. And then for vegetable seeds and plants, for those of you who have these gardens, you definitely can purchase those items as well. And then the ineligible items are, I just put the exact same things, any pet foods, excessive snacks, et cetera, et cetera. What you cannot use for your other food is a per meal allowance, right? So unlike the served meals, if you use option 2, you can use that per meal allowance rate of $3 as your documentation. For other foods, you do not have that option. Okay, you do not have that option. You will do direct costs. You're going to make your purchases, and then when you're reporting back, you're using the spreadsheet and you're indicating each purchase. There's a slew of information. If you haven't seen the spreadsheet, definitely take a look at it. All right.
Larissa, we have a question.
Okay.
So Betty would like to know, she writes, we are now on a hybrid work model. So not all clients are coming to the office to access the food pantry. If we are providing food cards electronically now, is it sufficient for our staff to send the email with the restrictions on food only if we are not providing physical cards? Or do we need to request itemized receipts?
Betty, is that Betty Chen? Is that Betty Chen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, hi Betty. Betty, I would recommend, see, I know some folks, I know some of you. Betty, what I would recommend, send me a copy of what that looks like so that I can further instruct you.
Okay, will do.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, hon. Any other questions, Miguelina, or if anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question?
That's all in the chart right now.
Okay. Sounds good. Perfect. So moving on, consumable expenditures. All right. So paper goods, utensils, cleaning supplies, first aid supplies are all for soup kitchens, shelters, or senior centers only. Okay. Only. So if you are a food pantry, those items you cannot purchase. All right. Now, for all program types, diapers is an allowable expenditure for children as well as adults. All right. I will also add feminine hygiene products for women. Is also allowable. It's not here, but you will see that on in the manual or on the reference guide. All right. For pantries, you can purchase the pantry bags. There's also push carts that you can purchase. Again, definitely take a look at the manual and or the guides. These are just a handful of things that we're making note of. And then personal protective equipment, also known as PPE. Okay, these are items that you can purchase. And whether you were awarded in the category of supplies and equipment, okay, whether you were awarded funds, you requested funds in that category or not, PPE supplies is something that every organization funded can purchase, as long as it is no more than 10% of your award. Okay, so whether you were funded in the category of supplies and equipment, you can utilize up to 10% of your award towards the purchase of personal protective equipment, also known as PPE. All right. Please note that if you are utilizing funds up to the 10%, please, anything beyond that is now considered ineligible, but up to the 10%, then you will also be required to report that separately. Okay, so on the final report, those of you who submitted a final report for our last funding phases, there's now a separate PPE line, separate from your regular supplies and equipment. Okay, so make sure that if you're making purchases for PPE supplies, that you are recording them separately on the spreadsheet and you are submitting them in that category if you're required to submit documentation. All right. And then will be ineligible consumable supplies would be any disaster specific supplies, toiletries for a pantry, soap and laundry detergent for a pantry. I'm really like putting the knife to the hip for pantries. I'm sorry, but I have to emphasize that while some of these are necessities for pantries, I mean, if you're a pantry, you can't purchase toiletries, but if you're a soup kitchen, you can. Kind of seems unfair, right? But unfortunately, I don't write the manual, I only enforce it. All right, so for a pantry, you cannot purchase any toiletries, any soap or laundry detergent. For equipment and repairs, organizations funded in supplies and equipment may purchase or repair up to $300, utilize up to $300 of their funds towards essential capital equipment. Okay, and that would be each equipment. If you need to purchase or repair, a refrigerator, a stove, obviously for a serve meals program, a freezer, up to $300 of your supply and equipment category line can be utilized for that type of repair or purchase. All right. Kitchen appliances for a meals program, so a serve meals program, fans for shelters, repairs to a mass shelter or shelters site refrigerator. Again, I already went through that. These are all eligible under EFSP.
Larissa,
But,
sorry.
yes.
We have you mentioned refrigerator and stuff. We have a pallet jack. Is that considered that we could use?
I'm sorry, a what?
A pallet jack that we use to move our food stuff in our serving area. Is that
that is not something that that the manual states, but what I will say is, let's just make sure. So if you can send me an email, let me verify.
Okay.
Okay, it's not something, this is new. So that's why I'm saying that. No one has asked that question before. My immediate response, I want to say no, because it is not explicit. It's not something that I've seen, but I don't want to say no. And it is, right? So definitely shoot me an email. Let me confirm with our national office whether or not that is an eligible expense. And then I can get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then any ineligible equipment and repairs would be repairs to the client's property. That's a big no-no, as well as claiming more than $300 of your capital equipment. All right. So if you have a purchase or repair, you can use up to $300. Claiming anything more than that will be considered ineligible. So for transportation expenses, now this category gets a little bit grade line for folks. So I want to make sure that this category is as clear as day, right? As clear as day. So what I will say is that we received a lot of requests for transportation costs, right? Of which many were not eligible expenses, right? So rather than just saying no to it, we awarded dollars in the category of transportation, but we want to make clear as to what transportation costs can be utilized for. Okay, so for transportation, there are two ways in which you can utilize your transportation funds. One is for mileage to help offset the costs incurred for any mileage. The mileage is currently at 56 cents per mile, and that is for the delivery and distribution of food, or for the transportation of clients to or from your mass feeding or shelter program. All right. So you're either offsetting the cost for your mileage to delivery or distribute food. That would also include to go and pick up your food, right? So you have the ability to purchase food from any vendor of choice. If your vendor is BJ's, right? I peruse BJ's quite often, so that's always my vendor. If your vendor is BJ's, you will go to BJ's, you will utilize the mileage log, you will log the date, from where, how many miles to and from, right? To and from your program. That is acceptable. All right. The other way in which you can utilize your transportation is through the purchase of Metro cards. All right. You can purchase Metro cards for your clients, again, to and or from your program. All right. Those are the only two ways in which transportation funds can be utilized. All right. What you cannot do is purchase Metro cards for them to go anywhere else other than your feeding program. What I will say is this though, right? What I will say is this, when you're purchasing Metro cards, we do not ask for a log of how or who the Metro cards were distributed to, right? We don't ask that. We do ask you to provide your invoice and your proof of payment. That is what we ask for. But you should not be providing it to clients to do anything outside of coming to or from your program. Repairs or maintenance to the LRO, remember that's you guys, your vehicle. So we know that a lot of folks go out and we've seen an increase in that as it relates to COVID. Folks are going out and doing deliveries, and that's honorable, right? Unfortunately, to repair or any maintenance for that vehicle, you cannot use your transportation costs for. Any vehicle rentals, right? So you rent a vehicle to go out and do this work. While you can utilize the mileage to help offset the costs associated with that, for the actual rental of the vehicle, you cannot utilize your EFSP dollars for that. Any fuel maintenance or repairs to the client's vehicle, that's a big no-no, all right? And then again, transportation to any other place other than to or from your program site would be considered ineligible transportation costs. So I'm going to pause here. Do anyone have any questions related to transportation costs or anything that we've discussed? Perfect. So for mass shelters, we fund mass shelters, 2 different types of shelters, in fact. For mass shelters, these are organizations that have 5 beds or more, right? You have 5 beds or more. You can utilize your EFSP funds. Again, you can make purchases for blankets, soaps, clothing. Expenses are limited to just the underwear and of course diapers. There's a slew of things that as a shelter you can purchase. There are a slew of things. This is a very short list of some of those things. And you can do that through a direct cost when you're submitting your documentation, and that's your spreadsheet, right? Where you'll document your expenses, the invoice date, when the payment was made, when it was cleared, et cetera, et cetera. Or you're using option 2, which is through a per diem allowance. Okay, so for those of you who have been using a per diem allowance, please note that the allowance has now changed, or the requirements under the allowances have changed. It was formerly you had the option of selecting $750 or $1,250. Now it is just a $1,250 rate. So anyone utilizing a per diem allowance, it is at a rate of $12.50, and that's the only option. All right. And just like for the served meals category, this must show a daily count. Okay, this is not a log where monthly you say we assisted 30 clients at the $1,250 rate. That's not how it is. You need to do it for every day until you have reached or exceeded the amount that you was awarded in that category. So ineligible mass shelter expenditures will include any decorative or non-essential furnishing. The LRO may not operate as a vendor for themselves or another LRO. Self-billing is not eligible. Expenses incurred outside of the spending period, I'm driving that one home. This is for every category, and as well as payments made after 90 days from the invoice date. Again, these are all ineligible, all right? Now we also fund what's called other shelter, or better known as off-site shelters. So we fund shelters who don't have housing facilities, but they pay for the stay for an individual or a family to stay at a hotel, a motel, a YMCA, a YWCA, an SRO, all right? Now, it used to be that you could pay up to 30 days of lodging. That has now increased to 90 days. Okay, so now you have 90 days of lodging in which you can utilize your EFSP funds for offsite shelters. Yay, for 90 days. And then of course you can also pay for any local taxes that's added to the bill. All right. Now, what will be ineligible, again, payments to another LRO for shelter assistance. So if another, if the facility that you're using is a grantee of EFSP, you cannot pay them using EFSP dollars. All right, it's considered double dipping. Payments made in advance must be made after the client's stay. So this is similar to that invoice of spending down on account, right? So the client had stayed there 30 to 90 days, and then you make payment for the client. You cannot pay for the client's up to 90 days stay in advance, and so they haven't already stayed. Okay, so it's after they've stayed the 30 to 90 days, then you can make payment for that invoice. And then of course, stays of more than 90 days would be considered ineligible. The per diem allowance is not allowable in this category either. All right, so we can't utilize the $12.50 per meal allowance rate in the category of other shelter. So for our eviction prevention providers, there's been changes here too. Now our eviction prevention providers may pay up to 90 days of past due rent or mortgage. So this too has been an increase. It was formerly 30 days and now has increased to 90 days. Yay again, to 90 days. You can also utilize your funds for the payment of first month's rent, right? You can also utilize your funds to pay for a client's first month's rent. You may also utilize your EFSP RMU dollars towards the payment of current month's rent, as long as it's due within 10 calendar days. All right, so you can pay for arrears, you can pay for the current months as long as it's due within 10 calendar days, and then you can make first month's payment using your rent and mortgage funding. What will be ineligible would be any deposits, any late fees, if you're paying for more than the 90 days. And I want to emphasize the 90 days because EFSP, we are sticklers to 90 days. We know that there are some months that have 31 days, right? There are some months that have 31 days. You will need to adjust, right? You will need to adjust for that day, that one day. All right. So please, up to 90 days. I do have 3 months in parentheses theoretically, but it is really 90 days. Any payments of more than that, it will be considered ineligible. Payments made to clients. We are never, ever, ever paying the client, right? Checks should be made out to the landlord, to the leasing company, to the management company, whoever the dollars is owed to. It should never be made out to the client. Any legal fees and court costs, property taxes, insurances, revolving loan accounts, these are all ineligible expenses for rent and mortgage. All right. If you have clients, if you are not providing eviction prevention and you have clients that has expressed a need, they're potentially, they receive notification that they're being evicted. They might have received notification that they're shut off notice for their utilities. Please have them contact Housing Court Answers. Is an organization that we work with. And many of our providers also work with, who can provide them with the organizations that could potentially help them with their arrears. Okay, and that is for rent, mortgage, or utilities. All right, so you'll have them call Housing Court Answers. Please, by no means, promise, because it's never a promise that an organization can assist them. There's a lot of variables that come into play as to whether or not assistance can be provided, but please have them contact Housing Court Answers. They'll do a pre-screening and we'll connect them with organizations that could potentially assist them. All right. Now for utilities, right? For utilities, again, 30 days is now 90 days. There's been an increase. 90 days of accumulated gas or electric bill. You can also utilize your utility funds towards the payment of a water bill, sewer. Current utility bill, again, must be due within 10 calendar days. There is a reconnection fee if there was a shutoff of the utilities that can be paid using your EFSP dollars, and then up to $100 for past due services without verification. So if you have a client who has come to you and they have a shutoff notice that just has, you need to pay, $200 now, right? Or your service is going to be shut off. You can pay up to $100 on that bill without verifying how much of that $200 was for 1 month. All right, without verification. There's also some non-metered bills, such as propane fill-up, that you can also utilize your EFSP funds for, firewood, as well as coal for heating. Ineligible utility expenditures would include any deposits, right? We can pay for that first month bill, but we cannot pay for any deposits. Service fees, late fees, telephone bills, right? Cable TV bills, agency's utility or phone bill, and then payment of more than the 3 months or the 90 days of bill. Any questions? We're almost at the home stretch here, right? Any questions? Perfect. So expenditures must-haves, all right? Let's talk about some of the expenditures must-haves. Phase 39 and ARPA-R expenses must be reported separately. Okay, they must be reported separately. You will not be filing one final report for the total amount of both grants. Okay, the same way you're submitting your certification forms and or your lobbying forms separately for each grant, you will be reporting separately for each grant. So you'll have separate spreadsheets, you will have 2 different final reports once they become available. And if you need to supply documentation, it will be for each report, each phase separately, all right? All purchases must be made within the spending period. Okay, must be made within the spending period. Again, the spending period for phase 39 and ARPA-R is November 1st, 2021 through April 30th of 2023. Anything outside of that cannot be claimed. Invoices and receipts must be vendor generated, itemized, and must have the date of purchase, okay, in order for it to be eligible. Payments must be made 90 days from the invoice. I can't emphasize enough. It has to be made within 90 days from the invoice date. Now, what I will say is while your expenses have to be incurred by the 30th, right, of 2023. So all of your invoices, the last date for phase 39 and ARPA-R is the 30th of April. Right, of 2023. You can have an invoice that's dated April 30th of 2023, and then you still have 90 days to make payment on that invoice. Okay, that hasn't changed. So while your payment can be outside of the spending period, your within the 90 heard. Is telling oh boy. Can you guys hear me?
We could now,
Yeah.
Larissa.
Okay, I don't know what you missed. I'm sorry. It just told me that my internet was unstable. How dare you?
Probably about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would say we probably want to repeat the last number 4.
Okay, so payments must be made 90 days from the invoice date. While your invoices must be dated within the spending period, you still have 90 days, so your payment can still fall outside of the spending period. Okay, because you will always have 90 days. So if you have an invoice dated April 30th of 2023, you still have 90 days to make payment on that invoice. All right, so your payments can be outside of the spending period as long as you're paying for an invoice and it doesn't exceed 90 days. I guess my internet is overhearing me. So let's try and wrap this up. If you're purchasing PPE supplies, You cannot use more than 10% of the award towards the purchase. And again, funds must be reported separately, okay? Unused funds of $5 or more must be returned to the EFSP program, okay? Must be returned. So if you did not get to spend down all of your award by April 30th, do not start spending the award afterwards and say, well, I didn't receive my payment or I didn't have enough time, all right? While we understand, you cannot have any funds that was paid outside of that. You have to return it. Okay, you have to return it. You're going to report on your final report how much you spent, and then you're going to report how much was not spent. What you report as not spent must be returned back to the program. Okay. Proof of payment must be maintained for all expenses. Okay, have to be maintained for all expenses. Cash payment of any kind is not eligible. All right, and this is, I'm going to drive this one home because we always see a spreadsheet that has the form of payment in cash, and this is not allowed under any program type, cash payments of any kind. What you can use is your agencies, never a personal, your agency's check, your agency's debit card, or an agency's credit card, never personal. That's as good as cash, and it will be ineligible, and definitely not cash. Any questions before we go into our pop quiz? Yay for pop quiz. Any questions? All right. Okay. So this should be fun, and I want it to be fun, right? We were talking about all these heavy stuff, what's eligible, what's ineligible. I'm talking about money's got to be returned if you don't spend it. How dreary. So let's have some fun. I'm going to ask everyone to please unmute yourself so we can all participate. Okay, this is the only time you all can unmute yourselves. Unmute yourself. I want everyone to participate. Now, we're not going to rescind any dollars to organizations if you get these questions wrong. So now is the time to be wrong.
Not at all. Please don't.
Now is the time to be wrong, because we don't want to start spending and that's wrong. Because if you start spending and it's wrong, then you're having to return the dollars. Okay, so we want to make sure that everyone is clear on the requirements for EFSP. So please unmute yourselves. I'm looking, I still see folks still muted. I still see a few folks still muted. Do you want me to call you out? You can do that too. I feel like in my past life, I was a teacher. Serge, Alyssa. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to read out the question, and you guys are going to tell me whether or not the expense is eligible or ineligible. Okay? So here we go. Let's start. Food purchase from the infamous BJ. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
Eligible. Yay. Copy of the LRO's check submitted with documentation. Would this be eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
It is eligible, absolutely eligible. Whether it's a check, if you use a check, or you use your agency's bank account, you must submit it with documentation when requested. Shared maintenance fee with the food bank. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible. Illegible.
It's eligible. Yes. It's eligible. Cash stipends to volunteers. Is this eligible?
Ineligible.
Ineligible. Ineligible. Yes, ineligible. $2 per meal allowance rate. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Ineligible.
Ineligible.
No,
There's a
$3.
new rate.
$3.
What's the new $3?
$3.
$3.
Yes.
Step up time.
Step up. We're stepping up. We are stepping up. EFSP is stepping up the game, honey. Payments to another LRO for shelter services. Is this eligible or ineligible? Ineligible. Considered double dipping. Payments of goods with an agency's debit card. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
Eligible.
Absolutely. Local taxes added to the bill for an off-site shelter. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
Ineligible.
It's eligible, guys. Remember the local taxes for an off-site shelter, right? That you can pay. Band-Aids, cough syrup, and aspirin for a mass shelter. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
Eligible.
Eligible. Yes, I threw a curveball. We didn't talk explicitly about this, but there's a slew of things that as a mass shelter you can purchase. So again, very important, read the manual, look at the guides, because there's a lot of information you'll find as it relates to eligible items. Diapers,
Eligible.
Eligible.
it's eligible for all program types. It's eligible for all program types, and that's for children as well as adults, okay? A refrigerator costing $325. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
What would make this,
$300 only.
what would make this purchase eligible? Say it again.
$300.
$100 only.
$300. Oh my God, we have EFSP scholars here. Payments made to a vendor more than 90 days from the invoice date. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Ineligible.
Ineligible, ineligible. Equipment repairs to a feeding site. Would this be eligible? It's eligible.
Eligible.
Good job. Vehicle rental to provide home delivery of food packages. Is this eligible? This is what?
Eligible. Eligible.
This is
Ineligible.
ineligible.
In delivery of food.
Eligible.
No vehicle
No.
rentals.
Ineligible.
No vehicle rentals. What you can utilize your EFSP transportation costs
Oh,
is the mileage, not the vehicle rental itself. Okay, guys?
Yes, yes, you're right.
I know I'm right. $12.50 per night for mass shelter for clients. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
It is eligible. It is now the only rate used for mass shelters. First month's rent or mortgage for a client. Is this eligible?
Eligible.
It's eligible. It's eligible. Metro cards for a client to and or from the program site. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
Eligible.
Yes, it is eligible. Rental deposits?
Ineligible.
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 Ineligible. Late fee for mortgage payments made after the due date.
Ineligible.
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 Eligible.
Payments of 2 months months arrears and first month's rent due in 10 days. That was a tongue twister. Let me read that again. Payments of 2 months rent arrears and current month's rent due in 10 days. Is this eligible or ineligible?
Eligible.
Eligible.
It's eligible. Good job, guys. The LRO's electric bill.
Eligible.
This is so not eligible.
Oh.
Never, ever, ever can
Never, ever eligible.
never, ever, ever for EFSP can you take your money and pay for your electric bill.
It's
The funds that
eligible.
EFSP provides under rent, mortgage, and utilities are for the use of clients that is on the verge of either losing their housing or essential utilities. Not to be confused with our HIPNAP operation supports grants, guys. All right, not to be confused, because you can apply for HIPNAP operations support. And I'm going to put a quick plug for my HIPNAP team because they currently have their applications available. So if you have not already applied for funds, definitely go to the Feed NYC website to apply, because their application is now open for you to apply for funds. Okay. And there you will be able to apply for operation support to receive dollars for your agency, not through EFSP. All right.
Yes.
And finally, 1 month water bill due on the due date. Is this eligible or ineligible? Let's not all talk at once.
Eligible.
Eligible.
Eligible. Eligible.
Oh, now everybody want to say it's eligible. Yes, now it's eligible. So do you guys have any questions? Any last minute questions? We discussed a lot, right? We definitely discussed a lot. So do you guys have any last minute questions? Don't be shy. You can definitely shoot an email to myself or anyone on the team if you do have any questions as the spending period progresses, as you're making purchases. I think someone is already going to send me an email pertaining to that forklift, I think it was. I don't have an answer today, but I'm definitely going to get you an answer. And it's things like this that making sure that you communicate to us is important. I know a lot, but there's just certain things that just never came across our plate, so I just don't know. And I'm happy to say I don't know, and I will get you an answer. So anything questionable, please make sure that you send us an email before making a purchase. Let's confirm. If you are an organization that's going to be making purchases of vouchers or gift cards, please, before you start spending down those dollars, you send us a sample so we can approve it before you start spending down. Okay, that's important. We definitely don't want anyone spending down their awards on gift cards that is ineligible. If you are a pantry, remember there's some limitations on some of those supply items. Again, Miguelina is going to share the resource guide with everyone. It is your responsibility to know what's on those resource guides as it relates to your program type. Okay, and if you have any questions, definitely let us know. So my goodness, we made it. We made it.
Yes, we
Oh,
did.
we still got questions. All right, go ahead.
One question.
We got time. We got time. We got time.
So
All I
Leah,
can say, I don't have a question, but all I can say is that we are 2 years into our program this year, and we are very thrilled and so happy to get this funding. And I'm just thankful to God and thankful pretty much to you guys for, really working with us. We couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you. Thank you.
This is for you, Rosemary. I'm doing a heart. I don't know if you can see us, but we're
Yes,
sending
I
love
can
back
see
your
it.
way. We're always happy, to be able to support organizations. And even more excited about the fact that we're making it rain, right? We're making it rain this phase. We are sending money everywhere, and in the abundance. So let's definitely make sure that we spend down on those awards. We are mindful about the 90-day rule. We're making sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's, because it is a lot of dollars, and it will be also a lot of dollars if we have to return it. Right? So let's make sure we're on point with that as well. Miguelina, was there another question, hon?
there is a question.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, we're asking? Okay.
Yeah, I answered it, but I think it's good to emphasize it. So Leah just wanted to know, since the period is November to April, can they start spending money now?
So you surely can. Okay, you surely can, being mindful that this jurisdiction, not a payment has been made yet. All right. And we don't know when payments are going to be made. So if you have the ability to start spending down on those awards and can pay for those expenses in the event that you do not receive your payments in the next 90 days, I don't think that's the case, but just in case, right? Just in case, let's make sure that you have the ability to do so. All right. We don't want anyone to make purchases and you are waiting for your payment, and then those payments are delayed, and then you're now coming back to me. As happy as you are with me today, you will be just as upset with me when I tell you that those expenses are ineligible, right? So I like when you guys love me, and I want to love you back, but I have to also be a realist and tell you that if you do not spend your dollars down the correct way, I'm also the same person you're going to hate at the end of the spending period. Okay.
True. Hi, Larissa.
Hello.
Hi, I just want to say thank you on behalf of my team and I. We really appreciate all the help that you have given us over the year. And I just want to say hi to everyone. And this was a great meeting.
Good, good. And we're sending love back your way, Unity with Love Tabernacle. We're looking forward to working with you all.
Hey, good morning. This is Fulvia from Alliance for Positive Change.
Hey,
I want to say hello, everybody. I want to second Felice because this meeting is very helpful, very informative, and well structured. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are very happy and proud to be part of this great collaboration.
Oh, wow. And we're so happy to have you as part of. Oh, my God. That was a love fest. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much. So if there are no more questions, as much as I want to sit down here and have you guys love on me, right? There's still work to be done. There's still work to be done. So, and we have 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes, and I have to say that this is success because our last 3 trainings, we went over in time, and today we got 3 minutes to spare. So I would love to give everyone back their 3 minutes if there are no more questions. I look forward to working with each and every one of your organizations through this grant cycle. I want to remain that person you guys love ever so much. And I will see you guys. We will speak, we will communicate. If there's any questions, again, just send us an email. As things get updated, we will definitely make sure we send out communications to you as well. Once the national office updates the material to reflect the Phase 39 and our ARPA changes, we will also send an email reminder to everyone, even though you have the access to be able to see that as well. Okay.
One quick question, Larissa.
Yeah.
Is there any way I could get like a laptop through a program for my program?
Not through EFSP, but but send me an email. I can ask the team to see if they know of anything. Definitely, unfortunately, not through EFSP, but if there are any funding opportunities out there, and folks on the team may know of, I'll be more than happy to share.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
Okay, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoy your day, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you, Larissa.
You want to stop recording?